In this screencast, we are going to begin reviewing the steps of the scientific method. If you have not written these notes in your journal, I would like you to write them as you go along watching the screencast. You'll need to pause so that you can write these notes as you see each screen and then listen to the description and the explanation of it. If you already have these notes in your journal, if you'll go ahead and follow along with me as we discuss the steps of the scientific method. So what is the scientific method? Well, it is a series of steps which scientists use to solve problems or answer questions they may have. You will find the difference between the scientific method and the engineering design process. With the scientific method, in most cases, the scientists will be doing an experiment of some sort and looking at the data and the results from that experiment and making a conclusion about what they saw occur. So these steps of the scientific method. Step 1 is to state the problem. The problem is the question the scientist is asking or the problem that they would like to solve. Step 2, form the hypothesis. A hypothesis is an educated guess on what the answer to the problem is, or the educated answer to the question that you have asked. This is done prior to any type of experimenting is done. This guess is, I think this might happen if I do this. So that's your hypothesis. Step 3, test your hypothesis. If you're a scientist and you're following the steps of the scientific method, you're going to be doing this testing by doing an experiment of some sort. So you begin by making observations. Remember, there are two types of observations, qualitative and quantitative. Your observations will involve your senses and noticing precise numbers and measurements. You will then create and do an experiment about the problem. We call that in the science world the procedure, sort of like a procedure that a doctor may follow, a step-by-step process. The scientific method is a procedure that you will follow. And then after you have done that procedure, you will observe more and gather your data. So let's figure out what data is. So data is any information that you collect from doing the experiment and observing. This data can be numbers, it could be colors, it could be changes with what the growth of the plant was, what the outcome from the experiment could have been. And you're going to be putting that information into charts and tables and graphs. In many experiments, you must change something to see a result occur. These different parts of an experiment have names, and those are called the control and the variable. In an experiment, the control is the part of the experiment that is not allowed to change. This is whatever is going to remain the same each time you run the experiment, so that you will have an experiment that is fair. So if you're testing plants, you want to get plants that would all be the same size, the same number of leaves, the same type of plant. All of those would be controls. You don't want to give one particular part of the experiment more of an advantage or less of an advantage than the rest of the parts of the experiment. The control shows what would normally have happened if there wasn't an experiment. In other words, in an experiment that's a controlled experiment, it is one that tests only one factor at a time. For instance, if we were thinking about plants, it might be the color of the plant remains the same, or it could be the plants that grew the most, or the ones that produce the most leaves, or the ones that produce the most flowers. So as long as you're only testing one of those, then that's what we call a controlled experiment. That's all of the notes for us for today, friends. Have a great day. The choice is yours. See you, bye.